Hello, welcome once again to Stuff and Things, where I like to talk about stuff and occasionally even things. I'm your good friend Bradley, and today we are continuing on with our two-part series on my Colt M4A1 SOPMOD Block 2 clone AR15 rifle build. That is a mouthful. In part one, I talked quite a bit about the inspiration behind the kind of AR-15 that I am building. This is my very first AR-15, by the way. And I talked about the SOPMOD Block 2 program, which is a program that our Special Forces troops use, the US Special Forces, US SOCOM, and it's a specific configuration of the M4A1 platform. There are certain accessories, rails, buttstocks, optics, lasers, lights, all the different things that go into the SOPMOD Block 2 program. And I use that as an inspiration for building this particular clone rifle. I'm trying to build basically the closest a civilian can come to this particular type of rifle that is in use by our Special Forces. So if you haven't seen part one, you should check that out because it'll explain a lot about what I'm trying to do. By the end of part one, I had shown you the lower receiver group that I had gotten, some of the other parts that I had purchased, things that were going to be going into this build. Now coming into part two, I'm trying to tie all this together. And basically, at this point in time, I've gotten some more, well, we're going back in time, but when we go back in time, we'll go back to the point where I'd gotten some more accessories, some more things for the rifle. I had already dropped off my 14.5-inch Colt SOCOM profile barrel at the gunsmith, and I had gotten my flash hider. He was going to install the flash hider, pin it to the 14.5-inch barrel so it would be legal. So that's going on back there. But I think we're going to be looking at some of the other accessories, some of the other parts I've gotten. We're going to finally get the upper back from the gunsmith. We're going to put the gun together finally. And I guess by the end of this video, we should have a completed Colt M4A1 SOPMOD Block 2 clone AR-15 rifle build. It should be done for the most part. There's still some other things that need to be done, maybe some ergonomic tweaks that I'll be making in the future. But for now, you'll be able to see the completed rifle. So let's go back in time, let's take a look at some of these other components, let's see where we were a few weeks ago. More time has passed and more random accessories have come in. I'm still waiting for my upper to come back from the gunsmith. He originally said 2 days, it's been well over a week and a half now. I'm waiting for him to pin my flash hider onto the 14.5-inch SOCOM Colt barrel. But in the meantime, some of these little accessories have come in, some things I may use, some things I may not. For the sling system, I'm going to be using the Blue Force Gear VCAS sling. That's the Victor's Combat Applications sling. It's just a nice 2-point sling that has a quick adjust option here. You pull this tab and you can adjust the length of the sling. Seems like it should work pretty well. I've already installed this H&K style hook on here. This is actually an H&K hook. It was surplus from H&K. And this I will probably be mounting to this CQD forward sling mount. This will mount on my rail. I'm going to play around with these mounting options. I also got some QD mounts as well. I actually installed one on the back of this. So we're going to see what works best for me. These QD mounts are Midwest Industries, but as far as I can tell, all of these QD mounts, whether they be Daniel Defense, Midwest Industries, Troy, they all seem to be made by the exact same company and just branded differently. I'm not sure if that's actually the case, but I can't tell the difference between any of them. So these ones were a little cheaper and they seem to work just fine. My rail also came with these various lengths of rail covers. I've got some ladder style rail covers. These are made by Ergo. And then these are Daniel Defense panels, branded panels, but they're also made by Ergo. And these, again, there's a lot of variation. It's up to the discretion of the individual soldier, what they use on their gun. You see a lot of Tango Down ones. You still see some Knights Armament ones, but you do see these ones as well. So I'm not sure. I don't even know if I'm going to use any rail covers, but I might experiment with these a little bit. I got this also from Blue Force Gear. This is made to go over your HK hook. So when it is dangling on your rifle, smacking against the rail and the rail or the sling mount, it doesn't just clang around all over the place. So we'll try that out. Various magazines. These are mostly the, I believe, Gen 3 Magpul windowed PMags, 30 round capacity. Try those out. These are in the Magpul Flat Dark Earth. And then I've also just got one factory Colt magazine. And we will see how this works. This has the green follower. You'll find a lot of these that are actually fake. They'll just have the Colt floor plate put on there. and then it's actually just a random GI mag, but this one actually is, if I can find it, there it is. It actually is marked Colt's manufacturing. So if you look online and you see a Colt magazine, make sure it has this marking on there. A lot of them will have the floor plates, but not actually be stamped on the body of the magazine. Just wanted to see how that works. So I'm waiting patiently. Hopefully I'll have an update soon with my completed upper, and we can join the upper and the lower together. Weapon light. This is the Surefire Scout M600 Ultra. Now, there seems to be a lot of variety as to what weapon lights are actually used on these rifles out in the field. I think lights by Insight, L3 Technologies, the same company that makes Eotech, are usually the lights that are issued, but it seems to be up to the discretion of the individual soldier, and often different units will have different lights that they issue, and I have seen pictures of Surefire Scout weapon lights out in the field. This one is the 500 lumen model, and I got a really great deal on a used black one. It was a little dinged up, but it works great, and I just spray painted it tan. Looks all right, it's fine. It'll do the job, and it's super bright, 500 lumens. This does not have the infrared capability that some of these Scout lights have, the V series Scout lights, but the chances of me ever getting night vision are so insanely rare or slim that I just don't think that would necessarily be useful. And when you have the infrared lights, your white light is necessarily more dim. So the 600 or the 600V Scout light that has white light and infrared only has 150 lumens of white light, and I think 120 lumens of infrared. This has 500 lumens of white. It's extremely bright, ridiculously bright. So I think this will work just fine. And it uses two CTR or CR123 batteries. And I think it has a constant on ability of 1.5 hours or something like that. But for the most part, you're just gonna be flicking it on every once in a while. It comes with a tape switch like this. Also had a black clicky tail cap there. So if you wanna do a constant on, I think I'll probably be using this tape switch. Well, gang, it's a very big day after what seems like an eternity of waiting, not so patiently. Dropped off my upper at the gunsmith. He was going to install and pin and weld the flash hider on my 14.5-inch Colt SOCOM profile barrel. He said 2 days originally. It's been over a week and a half. I may have called a few times, maybe more than a few times, to check up on the process, but it is finally finished. I finally have my upper. Excellent. So here we have the Colt 6920 upper with the Daniel Defense RIS-2 FSP rail installed, along with the Surefire SF3P flash hider. It's not the 4-prong version that they actually use in SOCOM. It's the 3-prong version, the civilian version, but the 4-prong version costs like $500 and it's almost impossible to find. It's ridiculous. This one will work just as well. Still has the same look pretty much, and you can mount the Surefire SOCOM suppressor onto this. Looks like he did a really nice clean job. The pin and weld job is nice. It's still visible enough that if a crazy ATF agent or BATF agent wants to check it out, I can say, look, there's the pin and weld job right there. I don't know if you can sort of see that. And I'm quite pleased. I actually installed the rail myself. Took off the old barrel, installed the rail, or installed the 14.5-inch SOCOM barrel, installed the rail. It's kind of a bitch, to tell you the truth, but I got it done. And I've already installed the Maytech rear sight onto this. So we are very, very close to completion now. We are to the point where we can finally join the two halves together, and they can become one. This is exciting. So now the moment of truth. Push these pins out in the lower receiver. I can now combine the upper and the lower with the 14.5-inch pinned flash hider with the flash hider pin to make it 16 inches, so it is now legal. When I join these together, this will be a legal weapon. Whew, here we go. So there we go. We now have my 14.5-inch barrel Colt M4 carbine. We're so close. This is very exciting. Now I get to put on all my little accessories. Maybe I'll show you a little montage of that as I get it ready to go. We're getting there. Excellent. Now, let's talk a little bit about optics and some of the things I took into consideration when it came time to choose the optic I was going to put on this weapon. Now, when you're talking about the SOPMOD Block 2 program, there are several different optics available. There are things that are very expensive. Some troops use the Trijicon ACOG. Some use the Elcan Spectre DR. That's a very popular close quarter, but it's also close quarter optic, but it can also, with a throw lever, be a 4-time magnification or 3-time magnification. It's very, very expensive. You also have the Aimpoint. Now, Aimpoint makes quite a few different red dot optics, some of which are used by the military. This one here is the Micro T1, which is a very small, lightweight, durable red dot optic. And here is the Micro T2, which is basically just a more recent updated version of the Micro T1. Now, neither of these are commonly issued to U.S. troops, but you do occasionally see pictures of these guys out in the wild, especially the Micro T1. Some soldiers put these on their weapons themselves, so I figured those could be viable options for my build. So the Aimpoint definitely looked like a viable option, either the Micro T1 or the Micro T2. I wasn't completely sold on the reticle on those, though, that 2 MOA, just central dot. And then also because of the fact that they weren't commonly issued, that's something that seems like individual soldiers might have put on their weapon. It's not something that is necessarily issued on a unit-wide level. And then that brings us to Eotech. Now, in the past, in the SOPMOD Block 2 program, the standard issue optic was the Eotech 553, is what they call the civilian version. And that had some issues. It had batteries that were mounted parallel to the barrel. And so with recoil, the batteries would push back on their spring-loaded contact points, which could cause those to compress and could cause some issues with the optic cutting out occasionally. So here's the Eotech 553 military designation SU-231, and you can see by the battery compartment there in the front how those batteries were mounted and how that could lead to problems with recoil. And then just a couple pictures of the 553 being used out in the field. So that was the former issued Eotech optic for the Special Forces groups. But more recently, the Eotech 553 was being phased out in favor of the EXPS3-0. That's the newest in the line of Eotech's kind of close quarter combat optics. And that fixed the battery problem by mounting the battery transversely on the optic so the recoil would not affect the battery. And here it is, the Eotech EXPS-3-0 military designation SU-231A. It just has a smaller footprint than the old 5.53, so it doesn't take as much room on your rail. And then you can also see the battery compartment there, just one battery mounted transversely, so that helps with the recoil, and just has some other ergonomic improvements over the old 5.53. And then here is a picture of it being used out in the wild. You don't see a lot of these out there yet, but they are being phased in, replacing the old 5.53. I was really intrigued by the idea of the Eotech's reticle, which had a 65 MOA outer ring and then a 1 MOA dot in the middle of that ring. A holographic laser projected reticle seemed very cool to me. It was something that I wanted to try out, so I went to a local gun store, looked at some of the aim points, some of the Eotechs, took price into consideration, availability into consideration, authenticity for my clone rifle build into consideration, and ultimately I decided on this. This is the Eotech EXPS-3-0 holographic weapon sight. And there were several things that went into my decision to choose this particular optic. For one, it's just a little more correct for the clone that I'm using, or the clone that I'm trying to build. Obviously, there are some aim point micros being used out in the field, mostly the T1. I haven't really seen any pictures of the T2 being used. But this just seemed a little more authentic, and then also quite a bit cheaper. The aim points are expensive, and you also have to buy a mount for the aim point, whereas the EXPS-3-0, such as the one I have purchased, already has a built-in mount that will allow your iron sights to co-witness with this optic already on the AR15 platform. So that was a big bonus. And there just seemed to be a lot more of these out there on the used market. They've been out longer, a little bit longer than the newer Aimpoint Micro T2, and I was able to find one on a forum that basically has never really been used. It was mounted on a rifle, thrown in the safe. I couldn't really see any signs of use on it whatsoever. And ta-da! Here it is. What a little beauty. Obviously I had to get it in the tan. That is the proper color for a SOPMOD Block 2 build. It's just an excellent little optic here. Much smaller and lighter than the old 5.53 was. You can see it has this mount on the side. It mounts directly to your Picatinny rail. You just press this button, opens the mount. You can adjust this if your rail's a little bit out of spec. You can adjust this screw here and it will mount nicely. I like the fact that this has the buttons mounted on the side. The older Eotechs had the buttons here, which seems just a little not very ergonomic, especially if you have a magnifier behind the optic. This is nice on the side. This does have night vision capability. I don't have night vision, but whatever. Basically, you can change the reticle into one that's only visible with infrared night vision. The battery mounted transversely now in the body of the optic. You have your windage adjustments here, windage and elevation, windage here, elevation here. Just a very cool optic, and I'll try to show you the reticle here. So there's that reticle, the 65 MOA outer ring with a 1 MOA central dot in the middle. And that reticle is etched everywhere on the glass and then illuminated by lasers. This makes this a truly holographic weapon sight. Adjust the brightness down a little bit. Quite a few brightness settings. Now we're going up. And it can get very, very, very bright to the point where it's basically a star in the middle of your window. And then there's also night vision setting as well. If I press that, it'll basically just disappear because we don't have infrared night vision on right now. Press that again, there's the reticle back. So that 1 MOA dot in the middle is extremely precise. Basically, if you're looking at a target that's 100 yards away, that dot in the middle will cover 1 inch of that target at 100 yards. So it's very precise. Parallax free, no matter what angle your head is at, the gun will be pointing at whatever this reticle is covering. So very precise central dot at distance, and then the 65 MOA outer ring is very nice for close quarter, quick target acquisition. So pretty cool. So I think this is going to work out very nicely. I'm really excited to get this mounted on the rifle, get it sighted in and everything. I think it's going to be a very quick to acquire kind of reticle, very cool for close quarter kind of target shooting. And I think I may eventually actually get the flip up magnifier for this as well, so I can reach out and touch a target from a little bit more of a distance. This is awesome. And so, after basically an entire summer of planning this build, of scouring internet forums, of going to every single firearms website, online retailer I could think of, looking for components, parsing different pieces, which parts am I going to purchase, how am I going to purchase them, what's the cheapest price, what's the best alternative, if I can't get this thing that I want, can I get something else that's going to work just as well? Finally, my carbine, my M4A1 SOPMOD Block 2 clone carbine is pretty much finished. It's done for now. I'm sure there's still some things that I may change. There may be some ergonomic things that I want to tweak a little bit. I might paint it eventually too. That's kind of, I'm not sure about that. Right now it's so shiny and new, but for now it's finished, and this is what it looks like. There it is, SOPMOD Block 2 M4A1 carbine. You can see it has the 14.5-inch barrel, Colt SOCOM profile barrel, a little heavier barrel under the hand guards. That's for the fully automatic fire that the M4A1 is capable of. Has that Surefire SF3P flash hider on there. The military version is 4-prong. This is 3-prong. That was a compromise I had to make for this build. Daniel Defense M4A1 RIS-2 rail in FDE. Use the B5 Systems SOPMOD enhanced stock. This is a Vickers VCAS sling, cool quick adjust 2-point sling. Have several different magazines. Right now I'm using the Magpul, I think this is the Gen 2 FDE windowed magazine, PMag. Went with just the normal Colt pistol grip, normal Colt trigger guard here. That's basically what usually is on the SOPMOD Block 2 configured guns out in the field. They do put their own pistol grips on sometimes though, but it's almost always this Colt trigger guard. Usually always the standard charging handle by Colt. And of course this muzzle device that I have on here, this Surefire muzzle device, does accept the Surefire SOCOM 5.56 muzzle, or suppressor, which is now the standard issued suppressor for the Special Forces troops. Of course, the Eotech EXPS 3-0 holographic weapon sight, quite lovely. This is now the standard issue close quarter combat optic for our Special Forces troops. We've got my Maytech flip up rear sight. Small aperture, goes from 200 to 600 meters. Compensates for ballistic drop. I think it's really cool. My Surefire, M500, or no, M600 Ultra. Of course, my very clone correct CQD forward sling mount here. And then the HK style clip that I use there. Ended up just going for a sling swivel, QD sling attachment on the back here. Seems like a lot of the troops out in the field, they just loop their sling through their buttstock. But I like the quick detach version here. Basically, this rifle, as it is configured now, with the 14.5-inch barrel, the muzzle device, which is 3-prong instead of 4, but still basically the same muzzle device, is and the bolt carrier group, which is an M16 bolt carrier group, everything Colt in here, every single internal is Colt, upper receiver, lower receiver. Everything on this weapon is basically exactly the same as an M4A1 issued to our Special Forces troops, except for the fact that it does not select fire. It does not have fully automatic capabilities. It simply has the safe or fire. That's all it's got going. But that is the only difference. And then the roll marks, obviously, it doesn't say property of US government on here. It just says Colt M4 carbine. But that's basically it. And then one accessory that I obviously do not have is the laser that they have. They have an Insight technology, the same company that makes the Eotech. They have a visible and infrared laser that's usually mounted here on the weapon. I don't have that. You're actually, as a civilian, not allowed to own the exact same laser they use because it's a class 3 laser, or maybe it's the opposite, maybe it's class 1. I think it's class 3, which is not eye safe, and the FDA regulates that, doesn't let civilians own those. They do make a class 3 version of it that is civilian legal, but it's like $1,400, $1,300. I do not own night vision either, so me having an infrared laser on my weapon would be completely useless. And as much as I'm enjoying trying to make as close as possible a clone, there are certain lines that have to be drawn, and I can't justify spending $1,300 on a laser, which isn't even the exact laser that's used by the troops anyway. So as close as a civilian can get without going crazy, this is the M4A1 SOPMOD Block 2 rifle used by our Special Forces troops. Now, a lot of them don't have the cutout here for the front sight post. A lot of them have the monolithic upper rail, the Daniel Defense RIS-2, and the front sight post has been shaved down, or they use a low profile gas block here. But there are actually more and more being issued with the front sight post intact and the cutout, and especially the Green Berets are using this configuration a lot. So you'll see both. For a while when Block 2 first came out, you would mostly see the ones without the front sight post. Now it seems like you're seeing more with the front sight post, at least in pictures I've been seeing from out in the wild. I'm gonna try to do a little bit of footage of me sighting in the Eotech for what it's worth. I couldn't get a lot of footage because my range does not like people videotaping there for some reason. I'm not sure why, so I had to sort of hide my phone to get kind of an angle. The audio wasn't great, but we'll do a little bit of that, and then we'll just wrap this video up. It's probably already gone on way too long. Well, it's a big day. At long last, I finally get to go out to the range and see how my M4A1 SOPMOD Block 2 clone performs. Of course, it's a typically rainy day in the Pacific Northwest, but hopefully that won't put too much of a damper on the morning. I've got several different kinds of ammunition. I want to try to zero the rifle in with that M855 NATO ammo. I'm going to do the Maytech rear iron sights and the front sight posts first. Want to try to zero those in, and then I'll zero in my Eotech. And I've got these 25-meter zero targets. My range is a very politically correct range, so you're not allowed to use human silhouettes. So I got these little rectangle versions. In fact, the target even says politically correct 25-meter zeroing target for the M4 carbine. And of course my range is also, since this is the US, they put everything in yards, so I'm gonna kind of have to experiment with maybe doing 25 yards, maybe doing 36 yards. I'm not totally sure. The military, of course, does everything in meters, so these targets are set up for meters, but being the stubborn Americans we are, civilians still use yards. Anyway, this should be quite exciting. I think I put this all together correctly, got all the right parts and everything, so I guess we'll see. If it blows up and you never hear from me again, then I guess you'll probably won't be watching this video because I won't be around to post it. Anyway, I am excited. Hopefully I'll be able to get some footage of firing this rifle. Again, my range is a little fiddly and uptight, so they're kind of weird about people trying to film and stuff, but maybe I can surreptitiously get some footage. This is exciting.
You're always sleeping, dreaming, things that make you shiver, sweat. You're trying to forget. I want to shake you, to wake you, but I'm still outside looking in. I'm knocking on your door. Now I'm trying to reach you, trying to get to you. Won't you please open your door? I've been trying to reach you, trying my best. Oh, I don't have photos stumbling towards your light. Now I'm trying to reach you, trying to get to you. Won't you please open your door? I've been trying to reach you, trying my best.
Yep. Yeah, it feels good. Feels really good.
I know you walk alone at night. Do you ever think you could walk a while with me? Oh, now I'm trying to reach you. I'm trying to get to you. Won't you please open your door? You're on the inside, I'm peering through windows. Won't you please open your door? Trying to reach you,
I love it.
trying my best.